Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show, and I just want to make sure you know about my best-selling book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness in Attack Survival, and it's 2 workbooks, the Threat Assessment and Defense Assessment Workbook. Now, I know you're saying that wouldn't be fun, and why would I want to get that? It's a book about safety and awareness and 2 workbooks. But let me tell you, there are stories, there are case studies, but it's not just stories and case studies. There's actually a technique in there that you can learn, and it'll change your life. It'll show you how attackers look at you and how you can use that information to build better defenses. Once you learn that in Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, you can then go apply that, if you'd like, into the workbooks and do a threat assessment on your life, your business, your church, your school, whatever, and then take that information from the attacker's point of view and put it in the defense assessment workbook and build your defenses from the defender's point of view. Now, for the children, the Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, is a perfect way to teach very young children and learning disabled children. It's a book of pictures, and in the pictures are lessons on safety awareness, and it teaches the children how to communicate with the parent as well. The parent, on the other hand, goes to teamlittlebigs.com, downloads the lesson plans, and then gives the book to the child and teaches them as they look at the pictures and memorize these things in the pictures. I'm the one who designed it with my experience as a Navy SEAL and an FBI special agent, and my good friend Daniel Kreiner did these illustrations, and they're amazing. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It's 2 workbooks, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. I've got everybody covered. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. It's interesting. Go get it. It's wherever books are sold, all 4 books. Great for Christmas. And hey, if your birthday is right before Christmas, you can get a birthday and a Christmas present for yourself. Go get them, and let's start the show.
The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam, and it's great to be back with you. It is now actually it's the 3rd of December now. You'll be listening to this on the 3rd. Again, I always record these. I stay up all night looking and researching, sometimes just waiting for something to happen in the news. And then it's 3:25 a.m. right now, so you're going to be listening to this on the 3rd during the day. And I got to tell you, yesterday, I just sat back and was amazed at what was going on in this nation. It's absolutely appalling at what's happening now. And I know everybody thinks this election was stolen and there was voter fraud and all these things. And you know what? You're right. I think it's quite obvious that there was. But we've literally transitioned in this nation right now from some weird point of being dominated and tricked by the left, which if you were tricked into thinking that, and this is why I was very skeptical. I said on this podcast, I was not sure if we would win on November 3rd for the presidency and for other elections. I was very worried because as soon as they mentioned mail-in ballots, and I already knew something was going to happen. But when they said, and it was learned that they were sending these ballots without people requesting them, I knew. There's all the proof in the world. You knew it was going to be fraudulent. So what's happened is not a surprise. What's happened should not have been a surprise to anybody in Washington, D.C., including the president, who I'm a big Trump supporter. But this should not have been a surprise. And what is even worse is that now, and listen, I've given the Q people a lot of grief over the past, well, I wouldn't say grief, a lot of criticism over the past couple years because I don't believe in I wouldn't say fake, but I don't believe in anonymous sources. I see stuff all the time. People send me stuff all the time. Is this true? Is this true? I mean, more than you can imagine. Okay, I have somewhat of a public figure, and people will send me stuff, and this has been going on for years since I got out of the FBI and was on Fox News. People will send me emails saying, what do you think about? What's your opinion on this? Is this true? And I answer those as much as I can, direct messages, sometimes on social media. And I get sent stuff all the time. And it's crazy what I get sent a lot of the times. I mean, I literally have to sit back and sometimes I write them and I say, what do you think? Does this sound remotely factual at all? And almost 100% of the time, it never comes to fruition. I'm looking and people are sending me stuff right now. They sent me all day yesterday saying that, my gosh, Obama's been arrested. And so was the head of the CIA. That did not happen. Just for the sake of it, I called my sources. Those people are still around. Nobody's been arrested. And the source that was being cited was the conservative beaver out of Canada. So I don't know where this stuff gets made up. It's absolutely crazy how the freedom-loving individuals in this country, and I do not really include the left on this, okay? Because obviously they want to give their freedom away. But it is bizarre to me how people that love their freedom make the most out of it if they want to or if they don't, but understand that this nation is a free nation and their freedoms should be taken seriously. I mean, the gun owners around this country that legally own guns, they're not going out and killing people daily like crazy. The majority of shootings that happen with legally owned weapons are legal shoots. They're shootings in self-defense, going hunting. Most of the time, almost 100% of the time, none of that has to do with anything nefarious. Most nefarious shootings and felonies are committed by people who have acquired guns illegally. Or a lot of times, it's not their gun. And then other times, they acquire the gun legally, but the process, because somebody wasn't doing their job, allowed a felon to get a gun. Like the guy who shot up a church in Texas. He should have never had that gun. He was a felon. He just was in the Air Force. The Air Force never communicated that outside of the Air Force, and so the guy was able to get a gun, and he had a record of violence. Was kicked out of the Air Force. But he was still able to get a gun, okay? So technically he got it illegally, but he went through the system. Now, why am I bringing all this stuff up? Well, the fact is, people who understand freedom and people who appreciate and value it are being snowed like crazy right now, and I can't understand how they're allowing this to happen, how you can be so damn gullible as to go down to Georgia, for instance, and follow this weirdo Ali, where if you look at his background, 15 years ago was arrested for felony theft. Then in 2007 or 2009, I don't have it right in front of me, but was kicked out of a campaign. I believe it was John McCain's campaign because he was trying to get people to commit voter fraud. And now this guy's down in Georgia. How in the world? This guy's never done anything to serve this nation. He's never done anything like to show that he is chopped away at the person that he was or shown that he's achieved these things so he should have a voice. Yet he's going down and standing on stage with Sidney Powell. Standing on the stage with her and some other people of prominence in politics and conservative politics, standing on the stage with them as they tell the people not to vote in Georgia. None of them have a solution saying, listen, let's get everybody from around the nation to come to Georgia and block the voting on the day that they had the voting, unless they vote with paper ballots and they have officials counting the paper ballots, and those paper ballots never touch a machine. We want millions of people to come to Georgia and block the vote. They don't say that. That'd be a real solution to it. The power of the people. come down and insist and enforce that they do it the right way. No, they don't want to do that. They're telling people not to vote. They're telling people, the conservatives in Georgia, don't vote. And people are buying it. I point this out on social media, and I say this all the time. You want to know if you're right or wrong on social media about something? About how somebody, you feel about something, you're like, that person's not right, or I don't like what that liberal's saying, or I don't like what that conservative's saying because it's not right. And you point it out. If you get attacked, or the responses are kind of in an aggressive manner, and there's no original thought in them, it's literally the same response over and over and over again by different profiles, you can guarantee that you are right. Because they're using trolls and they're using bots, and there's people that back them that are robotic in their mindset. It's like a cult. So getting back to the Q stuff that I talked about earlier, I've given a lot of grief. I've given a lot of criticism to the Q movement. This is one of the reasons why. Good people that I know, they're good conservatives, they understand freedom, are being led astray. And I kept saying this all over the past couple of years. Do not follow down a path where the sources are telling you not to do anything, that there's a plan and it's taken care of. That is 180 degrees out from what should be happening. Listen, if there's a plan, great. Let it unfold. But why should you be told, and the American people be told, to do nothing? Don't worry. Trust the plan. There is no plan. I mean, we can clearly see that now, okay? The election was lost because of fraud. Bill Barr hasn't done anything. Durham is nowhere to be found. The Republican Party has done nothing. None of these operatives that said that they were something or that they knew anything anything that they said has come to fruition. None of it. The only thing that this whole movement did was blindside a lot of people to say, hey, look over here while all this nonsense was going on over there. And now you got this thing going on down in Georgia with this movement, Stop the Steal, which is actually a theft in and of itself because it's telling people, hey, look over here. It's like a dog toy. It's like wiki, wiki. And everybody's looking over there while this whole fraud is continuing to be perpetrated. That's why all last year, all during this campaign process for the president, I did not like the way this campaign was going, because what was happening was people would show up, 70,000 people, 30,000 people would show up at these rallies. They would go back home and they would pat themselves on the back, get on social media, and nobody did anything. I know, because I've gone all over this country over the past 6 months, met tons of people, been to these rallies, talked to the people that were there, and they had no plan and no guidance. And here we are. There was no guidance given out. There's no operating, marching orders telling people, listen, when I'm saying if I was Trump, when I leave, I want you all to go. And it wasn't just on Trump. Listen, the guy is like a working machine, but who's running the campaign? I mean, you can't trust the Republican Party. They're not going to come up with anything. They don't have any plans for anybody. The plan should have been, listen, we know that the potential for voter fraud is here. My goodness, they did it in 2017. They've been fraudulently prosecuting the president for the entire 4 years he was in office, and for good reason. They were doing it so they could pull this fraud off in 2020. And there was no guidance to the people. Go out there. When I leave, I'm saying if I was a president, when I leave, I want you all to go and I want you to protest or rally or stand in front of. Don't let the governors and the senators and the congressmen and your city officials, don't let them pull this fraud off. Don't insist that they don't have machines, that they have paper ballots, and that they're counted by people that can be observed. Make sure you do that. Make sure that every single vote is tallied with an ID before the person goes in and vote, that they know who they are, and do it together. Do it as the people, and don't just go out and say it. Don't just go out there and stand around. Take action. And if a million of you show up, they're not going to be able to do anything. Don't let them go to work. Disrupt the entire city until they change it. That's what the left does. There was no orders. There was no marching orders like that given out to anybody. It was all the same thing. There's a savior. There's a plan. You go home, get on social media, and don't worry about it. It's going to be taken care of. That is fantasy world. And here we are. And now you go to the election on November 3rd and you move forward. And what instantly happened, and I know because somebody cut me in on one of these conference calls thinking that I was going to be a person that would get in on this. As soon as I heard that name Ali, as soon as I heard this name Alex, I knew I wanted nothing to do with it. There's several other people, and I'm going to eventually call these people out. Now they're doing a bus tour. They're doing a bus tour, and it's loaded with grifters, people who are wildly in debt, and they're drawing people in. They're drawing people in because they're gullible, and they think that they're doing something, and they're not. And they're associated with people like this Ollie guy and these other people. And I, for the life of me, I can't understand how in the world they don't see what's going on. And I'm pretty sure they're not a part of it. But the grift is so amazing. These people are either in debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or they're just lining their pockets with the money. All the while, they're doing the same exact thing I just talked about for the past 4 years has been going on. Hey, come to a rally. The people go to the rally. I've been to these rallies. I've watched it. They go to the rally. They're either told, don't go vote in Georgia, or they're told, go get on social media, or they're not told anything. They just sit there and listen to a bunch of these social media speakers, these quote unquote influencers. They don't influence anything. They sit up there, they talk about how great they are, and then they leave. And nothing occurs. I mean, literally, the rallies in Georgia, they're saying come out and rally and then go home and don't vote. And people are buying it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I can't understand why people are doing this. And I got to tell you, we are going to get the spanking of our lifetime. In fact, this nation is heading into the hell basket. I just made that up. Faster, that old saying, hell in a handbasket or whatever it is. We're heading down into Hades faster because of the actions of conservatives than we ever would with just the actions of the left. I mean, think about that. The left has done all this fraud. Meanwhile, the right has been swooped up in some kind of fantasy land that there's a savior and that there's a plan. And now it's still going on. You don't vote. Don't go vote. Don't give in to them. If they don't go vote in Georgia and they don't win in this runoff, that means that the leftist, socialist, Marxist, communist, globalist, Democrat Party is going to own the presidency. Well, unless Trump can pull it off, okay? And you should never be stupid enough to say absolutely he's going to pull it off because, if anybody could, it would be him. But we don't know. Trump gave a 40-minute press conference today talking about how corrupted the whole system is. The chances of us succeeding in this, where they've been spending years and years perfecting what they were going to do, it didn't just happen on November 3rd. The chances of us actually pulling this off and getting justice is slim to none when justice is being ran by the swamp. So here we are. The conservatives from November 3rd forward are now not being told to not be involved. Don't take action. Your inaction is action. And by the way, this isn't the first time that this has been tried. Okay. Cambridge Analytica, which was, I'd like to hear him talk about it. Steve Bannon was kind of orchestrated Cambridge Analytica. They've done this same trick in several countries where in fact, they did it in somewhere in South America where they literally got this movement to go forward to where they wouldn't vote. I'll pull it up on Twitter. You can go watch the videos. There's actually a show on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And it spells out all this. So I talked about that on this show before. It's all people who started social media, and they're the biggest idiots in the world because now they're complaining on what's actually happened because of the social media. So there's this, let me pull it up here. I put a link of it on Facebook, or on, actually, did I do it on Facebook? I know I did it on Twitter. And there's a couple different things. The Great Hack, that's one video, and then there's also the Social Dilemma. And let me see here. Let me get this out. Do So. That was the thing. Do So. And that was the name of the movement. Do So. And it had two arms crossed. And remember, this is Cambridge Analytica. Steve Bannon led this. Love to hear his take on it because their whole thing was do so. And the do so was don't vote. Just don't go vote. That's the way you're going to protest. The same language, the same phrases, the same everything. And it's happening now, here on the conservative side. I can't wrap my brain around this. You should understand this. You should know this, that this is occurring right now. And you should also know that you and many of the people that you know may be suckered into this. You need to be aware of this. It is a shocking turn of events right now where we could have stopped this. There could have been a good FBI director in there. Christopher Wray is a weirdo nothing. There could have been an incredible attorney general. Bill Barr, I don't know who suggested him. He's worthless. We could have been looking at this for the past 4 years. The FBI, that's one of the reasons why I left the FBI. I was literally told by a supervisor at one point, no, it wasn't a supervisor, it was assistant special agent in charge, brought me in because I was running special events, which is not parties. It's where I did all the threat assessments, operations orders, and was the on-scene liaison in all the major events in New York City and the surrounding areas in any major incident. I was literally the first agent at the U.S. Airways plane crash that landed in the Hudson River, and I'm the one who told Sully, regardless of what he says in the movie or in his book, I'm the person that told him that everybody was alive. He looked at me and said, Agent, do we have a word on if everybody's alive? And I looked at my good buddy, Sean O'Connor, who was with the NYPD, asked him, I said, can we get a number on this? He made a call. He comes back to me, he gives me a thumbs up, all souls alive. I looked at the captain, I said 100, I think it was 154 souls. I think that's what the number was, all alive. I said, Captain, you did a remarkable job, and when you wake up tomorrow, you're going to be a hero. And those are the honest words out of my mouth. I still remember it. When the Faisal Shahzad tried to blow up Times Square, I was a second FBI agent in Times Square when that occurred. Listen, I've been in and around these things. I've seen this stuff happening. So after doing all this stuff, I did operations orders like nobody else had done before in the FBI in the New York office. It was like I was running military operations because I was trying to give a product not only to the FBI, but to the NYPD so that everybody could be on the same page and everybody could work together. I know detectives that are listening to this are laughing. That did not work out so well for my career. I was literally called in the office of my assistant special agent in charge because he had gotten a complaint to the special agent in charge of the counterterrorism division by the then police commissioner, Ray Kelly, who said, what's up with this Gilliam guy? Is he trying to run his own military? So I was told that while I was doing a great job, I was pissing everybody off, and that's not the way the Bureau worked. Now, this was actually the third time I'd had this talk in 3 different squads. Because the first 2 times I was told, and I put this in my book, Sheep No More, I was told that my biggest problem was that I thought outside the box. In fact, the story I mentioned in the book, was by Benny. I don't know if Benny ever listens to this, but Benny got pissed at me and pulled the car over to the side. And he said, you know what your problem is? 90% of what you do is outside the box. This is the FBI. We think inside the box. And that's the problem. Okay. The FBI never thinks outside the box. The other time I got a talking to was because I was told that the FBI is a responsive agency. They don't go out like police officers. And this was, because I was a very active guy, and I was told by my first supervisor, he said, this is the FBI. We're not like police. We don't go out and just hunt. We don't go out and look for things that are wrong. We respond. Respond to complaints or whatever. So the Bureau is a broken agency to begin with. The Bureau has the ability to do anything. The Bureau stands at the ready. But the problem is that the supervisors, as I said on Newsmax the other day, and the executives in the FBI, they're not interested in thinking outside the box. They're not interested in forward-thinking things. If they had, we wouldn't be in this predicament that we're in right now. They would have been looking constant. They would have even had a squad that was constantly looking for voter fraud, that was constantly monitoring Washington, D.C. Why aren't we looking at Washington, D.C., as we would look at, as the FBI looks at its employees, right? I know when I was in the FBI, if I went and searched a database for something that I wasn't supposed to look at, and I started looking up stuff, they would know very quickly. They would know very quickly, and I would get brought up on the carpet. And if it was something that I wasn't supposed to be looking at, I could possibly get fired or even put in jail. Most people don't realize this, but every so often, we have to fill out a financial disclosure form. This is FBI employees that have a clearance, and I think it's across the board for anybody who has a clearance now. They do this so they can try to figure out if anybody is a spy, because the spies that they've had in the Bureau and in the CIA, the people who've done real damage, were quite often living above their means. These are people that were getting paid money, or they were driving cars, or they had a lifestyle that didn't fit inside the means of what they were making. And so they came up with this financial disclosure where if you have a certain clearance, you got to fill this out. And if the numbers don't add up, they start looking into you. And listen, it's not just you. They look into your spouse and your household and any of the money that's coming in there. Your bank accounts, your credit cards, everything. Now, we're looked at like that in this suspicious manner, and rightfully so. We take an oath. We expect it. But nobody in politics is looked at the same way. They don't look at them like this. They don't go over what their finances are with a fine-tooth comb. These are people that are going into Washington, D.C. I want you to think about this. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but it all comes back to the same thing. You'll see. These are people in Washington, D.C. that are elected. The majority of them are not millionaires. And if they stay in more than, I think it's like five or 10 years, they're a millionaire. Now, they're not making enough money to become millionaires. They live in one of the most expensive places in the United States. They make, I don't know, somewhere between $140,000, $170,000 a year, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but they come out millionaires. They do insider trading. They have relationships with foreign dignitaries and foreign leaders. They have meetings in secret, and none of that, and their spouses a lot of the times, their spouses are associated with politics or other nations, doing work in other nations and making millions and millions of dollars. And none of that's looked at with politicians. And as an FBI agent, people think as a special agent and with a top secret SCI clearance that I have this massive knowledge. But it's actually, the more a special agent means your authority is much more defined. It's not as broad as a police officer. Your authority is very defined, very slim. And as a top secret clearance, especially top secret SCI, secret compartmentalized information, that means that some of these things are so important that you're not going to be read into the whole thing, only a small part of that thing. So actually, your knowledge becomes smaller and smaller of what's going on. It's not like the more higher your clearance is, that the more you know. It's that the more you have access, if permitted, to more important things that could cause a national security crisis or injure the national security of this country. Now, that's as a special agent. But these congressmen and women and senators and people that work in these deputy directors and these senior executive service members, they are read in and get a top secret clearance, and they are given all the information. And they don't go through any overwatch whatsoever. They don't take polygraphs. I watched Nancy Pelosi get sworn in as the Speaker of the House. The guy that is like the master at arms read the oath, and she said, "I do," which I never understood that about a court of law as well. If you're a juror and you're sworn in, or if you're a witness, you should have to say the oath. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. When they say that and you say, "I do," that's what Nancy Pelosi did. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. She didn't take the oath. That guy read it. She said, "I do." In order to take an oath, you have to say the oath. So, point being, there is no overwatch in Washington, D.C. None. There's no special unit that does this. There's nothing. There's no special unit that watches over elections. Why? Because the FBI and the DOJ, like Benny said, they don't think outside the box. They think inside the box. And like my other supervisor said, they are responsive, not proactive. And like the other boss said, they don't want to piss anybody off, so they don't go down there. This is 180 degrees out the way it should be. Now, are you starting to see a picture here about this nation? You're starting to see, as I've talked about, what's happened over the elections over the past couple of years, what has happened in government in general. This president, okay, who was not a part of this, he came into this world of politics in Washington, D.C., and he conformed. He should have never conformed to it. And the reason he conformed is because of the people that he put in place. And the reason he put those people in place is because, and this is where the real issue with not ever being in politics comes. This is the problem, especially when you're at the level that the president was, that Donald Trump, the man, was before he became president. He ran at a higher level. He didn't run at the level that I do, that you do. All right. This guy ran with politicians. He ran with big money people. He ran in the social circles in New York and around the country and around the world that you and I will never run in. And that's a problem. Not because he's not trustworthy, but because when he went to D.C., he believed the nonsense that those people know more. And so that's who he put into positions of importance in his cabinet. Jeff Sessions is a perfect example. Worthless beyond worthless, but because of his position and because people, make deals and stuff, Jeff Sessions became the Attorney General. Worthless. Bill Barr. Bill Barr is not somebody that the president just picked and said, this guy is a born leader. Or not just a born leader, but he's a proven leader. This guy's done this. He chose him because Bill Barr is an orbiting satellite of Washington, D.C. He's been around. You try to look up all the other people who have had careers that even better than his as far as law goes, and they didn't come up to that direction because people like Bill Barr and many of these congressmen, these other people, they ride silver bullets to the top, lickety-split, with little to no proof that they're trustworthy at all or that they're capable of doing the job. And these are the people that rise to the ranks, like in the FBI, for instance, because they don't do what I did. They don't step on toes. They don't think outside the box. They conform. And so, as I've talked about before on this show, you have your leftists in every government around the world that are always constantly trying to take over, especially if it's a free nation. And then you have your careerists who don't think outside the box, and they don't do. And then you have just your criminal element, which is what basically government is in effect. So are you getting the picture? Are you getting the picture? This has been going on, and when this president came in, the biggest mistake that he made was he didn't know, and nobody briefed him on this. And how do I know? I've never sat down and talked with him, but I can just look at at who he's put into place and how they've screwed him over year after year after year, and their connections to the deep state in Washington, D.C. and around the country. So it was a big mistake, and it's not an unfathomable mistake. Even George Bush, who was, well, I don't think George Bush did it for the same reasons that President Trump did it, but George Bush, many of the same people that worked for Trump worked for him, just as worthless then as they are now. And I used to sit back and think, why didn't he get rid of all these people that Clinton had put in office over 8 years of government, ruining the military and law enforcement? Bush came in. He didn't get rid of those people. He just used many of the same people. They just stay. They're just orbiting constantly in Washington, D.C. Do you see the picture that I'm painting here? The picture is that the majority of things that go on in Washington, D.C. are allowed to go on because there's no overwatch. The senior executive service that exists in Washington, D.C., that's the head of all these agencies. The senior officials of all these agencies, they are a part of this. They don't think outside the box, or they're just on the political take, or they're leftists. And if the president had seen this, he would have been able to, that's how he could have stopped this. But the president, it is apparent now, is not unlike the majority of conservatives in this country who have no clue about this and will follow any person that comes up there and gets on a stage or gets on TV and says something that gives them hope, fake hope. And they just think, wow, this is great. It's all going to work out. It's all good. They have no concept of what's happening in this system that is there in Washington, D.C. They have no concept of how grifters work in politics. They have no concept of how inept and how deadly and dangerous the senior executive service is in Washington, D.C. Most people have no idea. But it's there. And this is what has occurred from, I mean, it's been occurring, but over the past 4 years, this machine was never even touched by anything that the president did. And now, here we are. The vote has happened. The fraud has happened on November 3rd. And what is occurring now is something that, from an investigative standpoint, I'm having a difficult time figuring out who this is benefiting, because it is not benefiting the conservative parties. It's not benefiting the Constitution. It's not benefiting anything whatsoever that has to do with keeping the Senate in the conservative platform. So it's a trick that has been perfected by Steve Bannon, who I think is a conservative. And yet the same exact thing is being used by people who are pulling the trick on the conservatives now. So I'm still sitting back and looking at this, trying to figure out how this is occurring. How we have a felon, a fraudster, somebody who has already been tied to voter fraud, is being hailed by many people as some kind of young, and he came out of nowhere and is funded and put on this stage along with Sidney Powell and other prominent people. I cannot understand how in the world this would benefit the Constitution, the president, and the safety of this nation in any way. And for all the people that wrote me today and said, I'm unfriending you for criticizing this Ollie guy. First of all, the majority of them are bots. Secondly, I don't give a shit. I don't care. As I said today, I'm a realist, I'm a minimalist, and I'm somebody who constantly seeks the truth provided to me by God and God's will. If people don't want to follow me, or they want to unfollow me, or they don't want to support, or they don't want to listen because they don't like what I'm saying, and it's the truth, it is nothing but, it is a comfort to me to know that that weight is no longer in my orbiting sphere of life. It does not harm me whatsoever. Now, listen, I'm not just saying this stuff, okay? This was a video that I took off of the TV today when they were having this press conference. And again, Sidney Powell's standing right back there behind there, and so is this weirdo Ali. And this is what, let me play this and pull it up. I don't even know who this guy is up there speaking, but this was the message that was consistently put out.
Where's Kelly Loeffler here? Where's David Perdue? He ought to be standing right here. Those two people want your vote, then they ought to tell you what we're telling Brian Kemp. Get a special session of the legislature now.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing with that. Brian Kemp is obviously corrupt. There should be a special session, or something should be occurring, not just in Georgia, but several different locations. But let's listen to the rest of what this weirdo has to say.
Do not be fooled twice. This is Georgia. We ain't dumb.
Okay. You're not dumb. This is in Georgia. Listen to what this guy says at the end.
We're not going to go vote on January 5th in another machine made by China.
We're not going to go vote. That's what he's telling everybody. Don't go vote.
You're not going to fool Georgians again. If Kelly Loeffler wants your vote, if David Perdue wants your vote, they've got to earn it. They've got to demand publicly, repeatedly, consistently, Brian Kemp call a special session of the Georgia legislature, and if they do not do it, if Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue do not do it, they have not earned your vote.
Wow. While these people stand on stage and applaud that, and that fraudster sits up there and puts his head down as he's saying this and looks around like he's guilty, and people in the crowd applaud this, he is telling people not to go vote. And this was aired on several stations. So again, do you see what I'm pointing out here? There is this system in, I almost said Hollywood because it's just as corrupt. There's this system, and just as fake, in D.C. There's this system of fraud that's constantly being perpetrated on the American people. The entire time this president's been in office, and they've been keeping him under complete pressure 100% of the time. You could turn the TV on right now, any time of the day, and the name Trump will instantly pop up, and it will be surrounded by lies and all kinds of crap. He's been under tremendous pressure. They impeached him. They did all these things for nothing. We know that what they impeached him for was completely fake. But meanwhile, while this is going on, and he fired the FBI director and filled that spot with another worthless hack from the same circle of people as Mueller and Comey. Christopher Wray worked with all those people. Bill Barr worked with all those people. He got rid of Sessions. He put in Bill Barr. Worthless. So while all this is going on, and this president's being fooled in this area, the president did a lot of amazing things. And I'm not faulting him for what he didn't know. You could have put the majority of people in place that never served in any type of official capacity, and they would have potentially made the same mistakes. You get up there to D.C., it's like being in Hollywood at the Academy Awards, but it's for politics. And you're told this person is the greatest. They got to get this person. If you don't know, you're going to make this mistake. I'm just pointing out the system and the way it works. He appointed these people. They're from the same circles. They allowed this to happen because they don't think outside the box. They're not proactive, or they're corrupt. Either way, the result is the same. And here we are now after the election, and this other group of people who I'm not sure who they're associated with are pulling another prank, another fraud on the American conservatives and telling them, instead of before it was, hey, there's a plan and the president's going to solve all this. Don't do it. Don't worry about it. Have hope. Nothing came out of it. Now they're telling everybody, hey, listen, we're not going to play this game. We're not going to vote again on those China machines. So don't go vote. It is some kind of continuation of this twisted game that's been played on the president, played on the American people, and many of them had just played right into the hand of this corrupt system. And it is shocking. Now, there were a couple things I was going to talk about tonight or today. If you get a chance, go to my Facebook page, Jonathan T. Gilliam. I've got the president's speech that he gave on Facebook. You can also go to his Facebook page, but it's 40-something minutes long, and it's filled with tremendous information about what's occurring and about what they're looking into. I mean, just go watch it. It's the stuff that happened at 3 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock at night in some of these places where the votes went through the roof, and he went from being, as he put it, incredibly winning their election to slightly losing the election in the snap of a finger. Go watch that video. All right. I go through these different stories, and it's like reading a tabloid, but it's not fake. It's not fake. I'm not even going to get into the stories because you can go look at this stuff, and quite frankly, these news stories are so salacious. Nothing's going to come out of them. There's a story about Bill Clinton today and about all these different, it's just crazy, the story. Go look at the news. This is some good reading news over the past 2 days. But the point is, it has nothing to do with what I've been talking about today, about this game that's been played, about the fraudulent behavior that goes unchecked in Washington, D.C., and about what's occurring now that's going unchecked by the American people. That's what you need to be concentrated on. And listen, I started to talk about this the other day. I'm going to mention it again. The Free Territorial Alliance, I've drafted up this one-page document, and I'm going to reveal that either later this week or early next week and the purpose of it. But I'm just going to tell you, I've been to enough meetings around this country of freedom-loving conservatives who are worried. I've even been to a couple where Democrats, former Democrats or liberals, whatever they want to call themselves, they showed up and they're like, something's not right, it's broken. You're damn right it's broken. You're being told you're liberal, you're being told you're conservative. Meanwhile, none of the liberal leaders or none of the conservative leaders have a solution for anything. Their only thing they do is cause more trouble, and that's how they get your vote. So I've been to all these meetings. People don't know what to do. They don't have plan. They don't have kit, which I can talk about that, where they go out and buy 15 guns and 8,000 rounds of bullets. And they have no concept of the fact that if you have 7 different guns, that if you're in something which you're probably never going to be in, once you run out of bullets of this gun, you're going to transition to another gun. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just buy one gun and 10,000 rounds of that ammunition and spare parts for that gun, or 3 guns for different members of your family? There's probably people listening to this that know that I've talked to them about this, and they get it. A couple people in particular really started to understand what they needed for a fight. Well, it's the same thing for stopping this voter fraud. Look, if 10 million people showed up in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day when Joe Biden's about to take it, and they said, nope, we're not going to allow this to happen. We're going to have a revote or we're going to war. Well, we'll probably go to war, but I can guarantee you one thing. The police and the military are not going to kill 10 million Americans. But the Americans have to stand together. I mean, the likelihood of getting 10 million people that are conservative in this nation to do anything together is slim to none. That's why the nation's going in a spiral downward. The churches, they're not talking to each other. You don't hear, the Southern Baptist, which is millions of people, come together and say, we're not going to allow this country to go down the drain. We are going to stand up and fight for this country. You're not hearing that because it's too comfortable. And listen, I don't want to say that that's what should happen to this nation, that they should get spanked, but I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I haven't seen no action, and we are now at the edge of the cliff. And we're either going to get pushed off or we're going to walk off blindly. But the chances of people mustering and saying, okay, this is it, and that's a wrong time. You should never get into a fight because you're backed into a corner. You should avoid that corner at all costs before it ever happens. So that's the issue. That's the issue. That's the picture I'm painting for you. If you got questions about it, you can find me on Twitter, @Gilliam_seal. You can find me on Facebook, Jonathan T. Gilliam. You can look on YouTube. I put this show also on YouTube, but I don't know what else to say about this, except that this is nothing new. The fraudulent system there's nothing new except for what's going on now where they're telling people to not vote. I don't get it. We're going to find it. We'll see. Eventually it'll be revealed who these people are with. They're not standing with God, I'll tell you that. They're not standing with the Constitution. You know, out of all the podcasts I've done and really everything I've done in media, this episode is probably one of the most important things I've done. You should know that Washington, D.C. has always been corrupt. There's always been fraud. And that underlying lie has always been that we, the people, should take action, but only through our elected officials in the Democrat and Republican parties. And it's caused this great rift within our nation. Now you're being told, in the case of Georgia, that your inaction is what's needed. And fraudsters are telling people, don't go vote. It'll all be taken care of if you just don't do anything. That is a lie. The American people need to stand up and take charge. We need the American people to take action now. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.